My name's Sam and this is the Little Greenhouse Creates. Thank you for joining me today. And this is our final card for our double stamp set of the week, Sweet Jar and Jar of Joy. So because it's Friday, it's a funky fold. So this is how it opens. You can either just open it like a normal card, or you can pick it up and move it that way. So we've got a little hinge movement here. So as I've created already a birthday card, we are going to create the Christmas card version. So let's bring in my supplies. So the first thing I've got is Darling Duckling cardstock. It's 11 inches by 4 inches, and we'll score that together in a moment. I've also got a inside layer. Now that measures 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. And then my two flap sections, which is this bit here, they are, the first part is 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. Then we have, so that's Cajun Craze. Then I have 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 in Petal Pink. And then I have 3 by 3 as the front card. I have a small piece of Designer Series paper, which is 1 1/4 by 3 3/4. And I have got a piece of scrap, which I'm going to stamp my jar on. So let's do our stamping first. So let's take these out. So we need the white pieces. Put those aside for a second. So this is our inside piece. And what I'm going to do, far over to the left as possible, I'm going to stamp these Christmas decorations, and I'm going to stamp those in the Cajun Craze, but I'm not too sure if I want it first generation or second, so I'm going to try that out on my scratch paper here. So stamp it up, okay, and then nope, definitely going to go for first generation, and it's just going to be up here in the left hand corner. Don't want it over too far because I don't want it showing through. There we are, that's that first piece done. That was easy and simple. Right, let's put that aside, close that up for a second. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to stamp my jar onto here. So I'm going to use Basic Grey. And that will go down here, and then I'm going to stamp it in Basic Grey for the lid as well. That will pop down there. Lovely. And then we are, oh actually, keep that out. We're going to add, there we go. Right, so in the Basic Grey, I'm going to put the snowman. Tap him. And then I want him down as far to the bottom of the jar as possible. So he's almost sitting on the bottom. Brilliant. And then I'm going to add his scarf, and I'm going to do that in Cajun Craze. Oh, can't open that. 2 seconds. I've forgotten to bring my close-up glasses with me. So we're going to do this with our eyes shut and put on his hat and scarf, and hope to goodness that I've actually got it in the right place. Actually, that's not too bad, considering I had it with my eyes closed. Then I've got some snowdrops, so I'm going to do that in snowflakes, not snowdrops, balmy blue. Let's do that. I'm just going to tap those sort of around. There we go. Look at that. I'm liking that. That's brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to cut that out with my punch. So as before, I'm going to put the jar in first. Make sure he is straight and I'm happy with him. Is that one? Spare lid. And then I'm going to fit the lid into here. Better make sure that's straight as well. There we go. Perfect. Now, this is the 3x3. So the jar will go on here, like so. I'm going to have the jar lid open. And then I want to have the snowflakes falling out of it. So I'll need the balmy glue. But I've also got Merry Christmas, which I need to put in. I'm thinking that's going to fit up to there. So let's put that in first. This Merry Christmas is from my stash. You must have loads of Merry Christmases somewhere in your stash. There we go. So Merry Christmas. Perfect. And then I'm just going to have some snowflakes. Close these up because I don't want to make any mistakes. Because you know damn well I will. Okay, so let's bring out some snowflakes. So if we put that there, we can have some snowflakes going 1, 2, and maybe just 3. There we go. So they're either jumping in or jumping out, one or t'other. Perfect. So that is all our stamping. I think I've done everything there. Okay, that's not the lid I need. So there are our stamping, which we're going to put aside for the moment, and we'll bring in our piece of Darling Duckling. Now, as I said, this measures 4 inches by 11, and I need to score it at 5.5. Now, I've brought my scoreboard in. Obviously, you could use your trimmer, and I'm going to score this at 5.5, like so. And then I want to go along to the 7 inch and just put a mark. If you want to do it just the 7 inch, don't want it more than a tiny tick here, because what we're going to do is bring a ruler and our bone folder, and we're literally going to hold the top of the ruler here at the tick down to the bottom right hand corner, and then we're going to draw a line, diagonal line. So just making sure I've got that exactly where I need it to be. So you probably need to rub it down or run it down 2 or 3 times just to make life easy. And then what should happen is that should fold over like so, and you've got that square triangle now. Square triangle, you know what I mean. The square turns into a triangle. If you just run it along your edge, make sure that it is straight. There we go. Straight down. Perfect. And then we can close the folder that way, and we just burnish. So it will look like that. So the first thing we need to do is to put our inside layer in. So I'm just going to run my bone folder along there, and we can then stick in our piece of inside card. I've got my Stampin' Seal. I'll just do 1, 2, 3. That will go into there, making sure as much even as possible all the way around 4 edges. Lovely. That will come across, so as you can see it's hiding, and now we get to put our flaps on, or our squares on. So what we're aiming for is the top left and the bottom right squares are to line up with the fold, okay, with the diagonal fold. So this piece is the bit that's going to need to have some glue. So I mean, if you wanted to, you could try and do it more over that way. That's probably a little bit better. Then we've got a nice little layer here. So you can hear that scratching. It's not Bella, it's my cat. Can you believe it? She now wants to come in and join us. But my son is in the other room, so hopefully he will deter her. Right, so we're going to put a line down. Come on. Right. She does want to come in and play, doesn't she? I don't know. You never know, do you? Whether or not it's actually showing up on video, or whether it's just me. Okay, so that's that bit. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it over. So the glue is here. So that goes that corner and that goes that corner. There we go. All right. And then you can turn it over, just double check there's no glue showing through, which is perfect. Now we can put our pink on. That will sit on here, like so. Now you have two options. It's up to you. You could, if you wanted to, stick that layer down to there so that the card just opens like so. Or you can leave it with a flap and it will just slide across. It's up to you, but it will stand. So there's no issues if you're worried about how it will stand. Okay, right. So now for our designer series piece of paper. That just fits in this section here. So it's just the 1.5 inch section over this side. And then I'm just going to rub that down with my Stampin' Seal. And I have thankfully used all the colours in this piece of paper to match up here. So now we're going to use our white. That will sit onto there. And we will quite sure why my cat's decided she desperately must get in. She's been asleep on the bed all day. She's been out twice. Right, there we are. So we have the 3 layers. Now we can add our jar. So I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. Let's turn him over. Actually, I'm going to use the bigger one that's in front of me. 2 seconds. Right, so I'm going to do one at the top, 2 at the bottom. That should be enough. And that will sit down on there like so. So let's... They're not your traditional colours for Christmas, but I think they work. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of the designer series paper, but it is new, so I will make sure that it appears in the supply list should you wish to copy or add it to your supplies. I had to think then, brain just switched off. Why does it always do that? Anyway, I have cut a small section of a strip of the design of the dimensionals that fit perfectly along there. Let me bring that up so you can see. See, it fits perfectly along there. And then you can tilt it slightly open so that the snowflakes can drift out. And that is our Merry Christmas card. Our final funky fold for this week's stamp set of the week, Jar of Joy and Sweet Jar. So I hope you enjoyed these cards as much as I did this week. It was quite interesting to use a 2 sets that work side by side and get 2 different varieties. So join me next week for our next projects. So, and then coming up, I'll have a Christmas bonanza for you. So watch out for that. But whatever you do, have a lovely weekend. And I hope to catch up with you very soon. Thanks very much. Bye.